Philhellenism and philhellene, from the Greek phi iota lambda omicron sigma philos friend lover and lambda lambda eta nu iota of sigma mu omicron sigma Hellenism, Greek, was an intellectual fashion prominent in mostly at the turn of the 19th century. It contributed to the sentiments that led Europeans such as Lord Byron or Charles Nicolas Fabvier to advocate for Greek independence from the Ottoman Empire. The later 19th century European Philhellenism was largely to be found among the Classicists. Philhellenes in antiquity. In antiquity, the term philhellene was used to describe both non-Greeks who were fond of Greek culture and Greeks who patriotically upheld the culture. The Little Scott Greek-English lexicon defines philhellene as fond of the Hellenes, mostly of foreign princes, as Amasis, of Parthian kings, also of Hellenic tyrants, as Jason of Pharai, and generally of Hellenic patriots. Some examples: Evagrius of Cyprus and Philip II were both called Philhellenes by Isocrates. The early rulers of the Parthian Empire, merging Iranian and Greek culture, described themselves as Philhellenes. Roman Philhellenes. The literate upper classes of Rome were increasingly Hellenized in their culture during the 3rd century BC. Among Romans, the career of Titus Quinctius Flaminianus, who appeared at the Isthmian Games in Corinth in 196 BC and proclaimed the freedom of the Greek states, was fluent in Greek, stood out, according to Livy, as a great admirer of Greek culture. The Greeks hailed him as their liberator. There were, however, some Romans during the late Republic who were distinctly anti-Greek, resenting the increasing influence of Greek culture on Roman life, an example being the Roman censor, Cato the Elder, and also Cato the Younger, who lived during the Greek invasion of Rome, but towards the later years of his life he eventually became a Philhellene after his stay in Rhodes. The lyric poet Quintus Horatius Flaccus was another Philhellene. He is notable for his words, Gra eccia capta ferrum victorum sepert eatus intulit agresti latio, meaning that after the conquest of Greece the defeated Greeks created a cultural hegemony over the Romans. Roman emperors known for the Philhellenism include Nero, Hadrian, Marcus Aurelius, and Julian the Apostate. Modern times. In the period of political reaction and repression after the fall of Napoleon, when the liberal-minded, educated and prosperous middle and upper classes of European societies found the romantic revolutionary ideals of 1789–92 repressed by the restoration of old regimes at home, the idea of the recreation of a Greek state on the very territories that were sanctified by the view of antiquity, which was reflected even in the furnishings of their own parlors and the contents of the bookcases, offered an ideal set at a romantic distance. Under these conditions, the Greek uprising constituted a source of inspiration and expectations that could never actually be fulfilled, disappointing what Paul Cartledge called the Victorian self-identification with the glory that was Greece. Another popular subject of interest in Greek culture at the turn of the 19th century was the shadowy Scythian philosopher Anacharsis, who lived in the 6th century BCE. The new prominence of Anacharsis was sparked by Jean-Jacques Barthélemy's fanciful travels of Anacharsis the Younger in Greece, a learned imaginary travel journal, one of the first historical novels, which a modern scholar has called the Encyclopedia of the New Cult of the Antique. In the late 18th century, it had a high impact on the growth of Philhellenism in France. The book went through many editions, was reprinted in the United States, and was translated into German and other languages. It later inspired European sympathy for the Greek War of Independence. independence and spawned sequels and imitations throughout the 19th century. In German culture, the first phase of Philhellenism can be traced in the careers and writings of Johann Joachim Winckelmann, one of the inventors of art history, Friedrich August Wolff, who inaugurated modern Homeric scholarship with his Prolegomena ad Homerem, and the enlightened bureaucrat Wilhelm von Humboldt. In the German states, the private obsession with ancient Greece took public forms, institutionalizing an elite Philhellene ethos through the gymnasium, to revitalize German education at home, and providing on 2 occasions higher-minded Philhellene German princes ignorant of modern-day Greek realities to be Greek sovereigns. During the later 19th century, the new studies of archaeology and anthropology began to offer a quite separate view of ancient Greece, which had previously been experienced at second hand only through Greek literature, Greek sculpture and architecture. 20th century heirs of the 19th century view of and unchanging, immortal quality of Greekness are typified in J.C. Lawson's Modern Greek Folklore and Ancient Greek Religion, or R&E Blum's The Dangerous Hour, The Law of Crisis and Mystery in Rural Greece. According to the classicist Paul Cartledge, they represent this ideological construction of Greekness as an essence, a classicizing essence to be sure, impervious to such historic changes as that from paganism to Orthodox Christianity, or from subsistence peasant agriculture to more or less internationally market-driven capitalist farming. The Philhellenic movement led to the introduction of classics or classical studies as a key element in education, introduced in the gymnasium in Prussia. In England, the main proponent of classics in schools was Thomas Arnold, headmaster at Rugby School. The theme of Nikos Dimous' The Misfortune to be Greek is the perception that the Philhellenic West's projected desire for the modern Greeks to live up to their ancestors' glorious past has always been a burden upon the Greeks themselves. In particular, Western Philhellenism focused exclusively on the heritage of classical Greek history, in effect negating or rejecting the heritage of Byzantine history, which for the Greeks themselves is at least as important. Philhellenism and art. Philhellenism also created a renewed interest in the artistic movement of neoclassicism, which idealized 5th-century classical Greek art and architecture, very much at second hand, through the writings of the first generation of art historians, like Johann Joachim Winckelmann and Gotthold Ephraim Lessing. The groundswell of the Philhellenic movement was a result of 2 generations of intrepid artists and amateur treasure-seekers, from Stuart and Revett, who published the measured drawings as the Antiquities of Athens, and culminating with the removal of sculptures from Aegina and the Parthenon, works that ravished the British Philhellenes, many of whom, however, deplored the removal. Philhellenism in the Greek War of Independence. Many Philhellenes supported the Greek independence. Some, notably Lord Byron, even took up arms to join the Greek revolutionaries. Many more financed the revolution or contributed through their artistic work. Throughout the 19th century, Philhellenes continued to support Greece politically and militarily. For example, Richo Garibaldi led a volunteer expedition in the Greco-Turkish War of 1897.